Welcome to another episode of the 1 Year No Beer podcast. We're almost over with season 3. Yeah, I know it's been an amazing season, full of interesting and inspiring guests, loads of knowledge, information, science, and so much more. However, today I'm honoured to have Scott Thomas as a guest. He is the director of The Social PR, a leading creative PR agency in the UK, specialising in influencer marketing, public relations and event management. And as the co-founder of Food for Thoughts, a wellness brand revolutionising nutrition, Scott is committed to empowering individuals to achieve their goals. And you may recognise Scott from the telly. But we'll get into that in a second. Let's welcome Scott Thomas as he shares lessons from his self-development journey and his relationship with alcohol.
Well, I have been looking forward to this episode as a man who I think potentially, I'm not saying this is the case, but I think potentially has even more energy than me. I haven't met many in this world. I've met a lot of people that I could say that to, but Scott has some incredible energy, positive energy. I just love how you bring it. So, Scott, thank you so much for joining me on the OYNB podcast. How are you?
Oh, amazing. Do you know what's so weird? When you called me a man, I felt proud for a minute. I'm actually a man now. I'm 35 years of age. I still feel like I'm 19, Rory. So yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to this. Obviously, we've had a lot of chat briefly, and I'm like, can't wait to pick this guy's brains even more. Like, he's just on a different level, a different stratosphere. So I'm looking forward to it.
Brilliant. Well, hopefully I can pick your brains a little bit. 35 years old, you've had quite a big impact already. So for the very few amount of people who don't know who you are, why don't you tell us a bit of background into who Scott is and what brought you here today?
Well, I'm a 35-year-old businessman from Manchester, which again, when I say that, I feel a sense of imposter syndrome. But I run a couple of businesses, 3 businesses if you count my personal brand and my podcast and stuff. I run a PR agency called Social PR, and I also run a wellness brand called Food for Thoughts, which is something I'm really proud of. And it's all about self-development and facilitating lifestyle change, which is kind of ironic, seeing as though I spent the majority of my 20s being a professional party boy. And what I involved was I used to throw parties for a living in nightclubs all around the UK, in particular Manchester. And they were quite high-profile events, a lot of celebrities, footballers, artists, music artists, and so forth. And basically, my brothers were both in soaps. Ryan was in Coronation Street for 17 years as Jason Gripjaw, and Adam played Adam Barton in Emmerdale for about 10 years. So I had this amazing social circle, and I kind of used that to build these amazing events and parties, and it was very glamorous for a long time. However, it kind of escalated out of control because anything I do, I like to be the best at it. And ironically, in school, I was a high achiever. I was a straight A kid. I got 4 A stars, 5 A's at GCSE, which I'm really still proud about. 3 A's at A level, went to university, studied history, and I was set to be a barrister and everything else. But then just enjoying my time at uni, I went into kind of the party scene because I'm very much a social person, and I noticed that I'm good at bringing people together, and that was kind of my skill. However, in the nightlife environment, in order to be able to stick around these people and host them for hours on end, I basically used alcohol as a bit of a coping mechanism. But if I look further back than that, I was drinking alcohol since from the age of 13, 14 on a local park with my mates. Yeah. I remember the Friday night ritual, go down to the local shop, ask someone to go in the shop for you, quarter litre of vodka, a bottle of Fanta, and for as long as I can remember, I've always drank for confidence, for social skills, and that kind of escalated even more out of control in the nightlife industry, and I became the Scottish Special. That was my alter ego. I'm quite a nice, humble guy when I'm sober, but when I was drunk, I was 100 miles an hour, life and soul, getting chucked out of my own events because I was crazy, and that was glorified, and I glorified it for a long time. Lads. As time kind of progressed, I found myself getting into situations that I didn't want to be in. I'd get myself into trouble. I could be nasty to people. Relationships would break down. I'd hate myself the next day, not knowing what I did. And people didn't really see that side. People just like, Scott, just get on top of it. You can like, Johnny, stop drinking as much. But they didn't realize that it was I was kind of identified through alcohol but I couldn't get control of it. And when I moved into business, when I lost my PR agency and stuff, a lot of my bad habits, because I was literally all or nothing when it came to drink, I took them into like my business life, and I'd go to a work event and I'd still be all or nothing, and end up getting myself into trouble and maybe losing a client over it. And it just got to the point where I was like, enough is enough. I've got to do something about this. And I got escorted out of one of my biggest client events in 2020. And I decided that at that point, enough was enough. I wanted to go sober for a year. And wow, that was the most formative year of my life.
Let me take you back for a second, because you mentioned about your family being heavily involved in TV. How did that come about? Like, how did you? Where was the connection for your brothers to end up in TV?
So basically, my dad was a soul singer, and my dad was the ultimate entertainer, and he used to bring big acts over to the UK, like Michael Jackson, the Jackson 5, Stevie Wonder, James Brown. I've even watched him support James Brown at Bridgewater Hall in Manchester. Like, he was that guy, and I think all of us had that show business element to our personalities through my dad. We used to line up as kids, and my dad was called Dougie James and the Soul Train, and we used to line up as 3 kids called the Duggettes and perform. And my brothers were just always entertainers. They were the class clowns in school. They both nearly got expelled, but they were just really charismatic and entertaining. And my nan pushed them both into acting school, whereas I was the academic one. I was the really smart one, so I went to a private school. Me and my twin brother Adam went to different schools because of that. And so basically I studied all my life. I used to spend hours on end in my bedroom, and then basically my brothers both left school, not with the best grades, but both got jobs in big soaps at the age of 16, made lots of money, and I was like, oh, I've got this all wrong.
I'm going the hard road here.
Yeah, pretty much. We laugh because I was a golden child for the childhood, and then them two basically took over in the teens. And
so there's something in there. I just wanted to, not that I want to psychoanalyze you live on a podcast.
Do it, please, Rory. Do it. Break me down. I love it.
Is there a part of you that maybe resonates with the fact that the way you received love as a child is through entertaining and acting out and entertaining an audience? Just before you answer that, there's this wonderful phrase or not that wonderful, but that there is no difference between attention and love for a child. So attention is the ultimate goal, because that is when one receives love. So do you think there's an element in there, perhaps still attached to you today, that sees that the way that you receive love is through the entertainment?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've been doing a lot of therapy myself, and my therapist always takes me back to my childhood. And at first I was like, what are you on about? I had a great childhood. But then I realized that my dad wasn't around for about 6 years. We didn't see him from the age of 6 till 12. And we knew he was out there. And like, that was really tough at the time because we loved our dad. And I love my mum, but I wouldn't say she was like a motherly mum. Like, she was amazing, did so much for us, and don't get me wrong, she's done an amazing job, but she wasn't like very affectionate. I don't remember that. So I think there was an element of us as Thomas brothers. We all were kind of charismatic, and that performing element was a way of getting validation. And I know I still look for external validation all the time through social media. I'm like, I can put out a post and it'll do really well, and that can massively impact my day. And if
the whole day is off.
Yeah, and if it doesn't do as well, I'm a bit like, Scott, that's separate to you, but it doesn't matter. It still impacts me probably more so than other people. And people say that the happiest people are the ones who just don't give a shit about anyone. And I think I'd love to get to that point. Like, but I don't know how, as human beings, if that's even possible, because we're such tribal beings, aren't we? Like, we need to be part of communities and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, actually, this is a whole part of reparenting and things like that. So, traditional psychotherapy, or even just in looking at coaching tools like things like IFS, is understanding the part of you that's looking for validation. More importantly, is that you are the one who needs to give you the validation. And that's where it comes from. The core is really from your own self-validation. So getting aware of those parts and then making peace with them and understanding that really it's you. And even more powerfully than that is it's not necessarily you versus you. It's actually you versus the child. And when you separate those two and recognize that the child is behaving in this manner, and then you give the child love, it comes from a much more powerful place. Like, you can love your child, and that way then less of the validation is required. Makes sense?
Yeah, it's weird actually because I always draw this kind of I draw out the scenario in my head. I always drive past my old school, and I remember vividly. I used to stare out the window of this. I used to look into the distance. I used to kind of daydream about the future and stuff. And I was thinking, if you and Scott could see me driving past now, with the life that I have, with the businesses that I have, the profile I have, the car that I'm driving back to my home, like I always think, would you take that deal? Like someone said, right, 35, that's what you're getting, and I think, it's not my fingers off, right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's hard to appreciate what you've got and how far you've come because we're wrapped up in, and especially myself, I'm always
looking further ahead.
Yeah, and just having a bit of a realization in my life now that that's not the key to happiness. That's not the key to living a fulfilled life. Like always wanting more. It's just difficult though. So I'm at that point where I'm really analysing myself, and I think that comes through sobriety. Like the amount of self-awareness I've got now, is on another level. To the point where I don't tolerate anything in my life now that I can't even people like whether it's
no more idiots.
Yeah, business partners that I don't like vibe with, whether it's like a certain thing that I don't want to go to. You just don't have any patience for it because you're so self-aware of what you want now. And I think that's been amazing, but it's also been tough because you're almost having a clear out, really, which causes a lot of problems.
Totally, but it's a fun clear out. So you did, I mean, you have had a bit of a stint on the old TV box. So you went from studying history and kind of focusing on thinking you were going to go into the corporate world. You had two brothers who were smashing it in TV. How did you get? What's next in the?
Yeah, so I was always the unfamous brother, and you'll probably do some psychoanalysis on this, right? So people forget that I'm
too hard on you.
I love it. I wasn't famous until I was 27, and that's a long time to grow up with two brothers who are really famous, and you are the guy who takes the pictures. Oh, we take a picture of me and your brother. Yeah, and like
they didn't even know who you were. Triggering much.
Yeah, but then listen, my brothers never made me feel that way because they took me everywhere, and I never felt in competition with them. And in a way, I created my own identity, especially in Manchester, where we found these big nights. I was very well known, and I think that was my way of basically saying, "I'm here." Do you know what I mean? I've still got my own identity as well. But I think there was always an element of me that I felt like I belonged in the limelight in some way, shape or form. But just because of my personality, you've met me before. Like I got asked so many times over the years to go and do reality shows, but my brothers would never want me to do it because back then reality was really kind of risky.
Yeah.
It wasn't part of the culture as it is now. So I didn't want to let them down. They were credible actors. But then Love Island came about, and Love Island, I watched the first ever series of Love Island years ago when I was doing my GCSEs. I remember it with Callum Best. What's his name now? Is it something that Paul Danan? Abby Titmuss. I think Kelly Brook presented it. It was years ago. Fran Cosgrave or something like that. But anyway, it was my favourite show, and I got approached to do series 2 of Love Island, and I was like, I just lost one of my businesses at the time. I had this selfie stick business which was doing so well, but then we had to liquidate it for so many different reasons. And I was like, you know what? The stars have aligned. I've got nothing to lose. Told my big brother I want to do it, and I ended up doing it. And wow, I just felt at home. Like I came out overnight. It was a massive success, bigger success than I thought it was going to be. I was on the front page of OK magazine. I had 700,000 followers overnight.
Wow!
And I just remember the moment. I remember the moment my brothers came to meet me in Mallorca, and I'd just come out of the villa, and all the girls started screaming, Scott. I was with my brothers, and I was like, it was like an out-of-body experience where they didn't even mention my brothers. And
yeah, you went in no one and came out famous.
Yeah, literally overnight. Like, and you do Love Island's such a big show. People do not forget it. Like even to this day, like, and I've done like multiple other shows and moved myself on so much. I will still be known as Scott from Love Island from a lot of people, which is it's fine now because I'm moving myself on in terms of my identity. But yeah, it was an amazing experience, and I felt really at home. I love it when people ask me for a picture. I don't know what it is. I love it when people are maybe starstruck with that. I think it's because I've been on the other side of it, and it comes so natural to me to to give someone that time, that energy, that picture. And if you can make someone's day by doing that, it's so like it comes second nature to me. Some people become famous and they don't really, it's not really in their personality to be like that.
Yeah.
Whereas with me, it's hand in hand. Like I would go and walk up to a stranger and give them time and attention and talk to random people in the steam room and sauna about my life. Like I'm just that guy anyway. So I don't really find it invasive, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Great. It fits your personality. I was just thinking about The Rock there, you know, who regularly publishes on his socials and things, and like the tour bus pulling up, and he's like, "Hi everyone, how you doing?" You know, and they're just like, "Oh my God, it's The Rock," you know, and he's just such a cool human, and you know, I think that resonates very strongly with humanity because they go, "Oh, they're normal," and then there's that part, but of course, there's lots of dark side to it. So I'd love to hear, you know, you've touched on the positives that it resonates with you and things, but has there been any downsides to it? What's been the difficult things?
To be honest, I think I've been really lucky, touch wood, that I've been depicted in quite a positive light from the show. But I've had friends.
You mean you didn't make an arse of yourself?
Yeah, I didn't really make an arse for myself. Well, I think I did, but I pulled it back. And yeah. You are very much in the hand of that kind of the editors on those shows. And I've had
100%. Just a tiny story to interject. So I was contestant number 15 for series 2 of The Apprentice. There is only 14 contestants, but I sat outside the studio for 4 hours waiting to go on, and actually never went on the show. I knew a girl who went on it, Karen, she ex-RAF lawyer, incredibly professional, really smart girl, right? All of those things. But when you film someone for days and cut it into 2 or 3 minutes of cut, you could make somebody look like anything, right? Just by catching a glance or one word they say. So she came out looking at it pretty poorly, but actually that just wasn't her at all. And I think that's the dice you roll. It's not really in your hands. At the end of the day, it comes down to the editors.
Yeah, 100%. And I got lucky, and I was also, but at the same time, I do like to just be myself. But at the same time, there are some certain friends that, like on my series, Sophie, who was on my series, she took her own life. After the show, I had another friend, Mike, as well, from a later series. He took his own life. Do you know what I mean? That's like, and then obviously Caroline Flack, we know.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not for everybody, and it can be tough. But for me, like I said, it's kind of part of my personality, and I kind of really embrace it. But like I said, you have to be careful. You're going on that show, you need to know that your whole life will change, and you've got to be prepared for it. And not just that show, any kind of thing that you go into, it's difficult.
What is I don't watch Love Island, so Jen is going to slap me in the face saying, "How could you even ask that question?" But, sorry. What is the drinking culture?
This was a big problem for me, Rory. So I went on there thinking it's going to be a big party, 6 weeks in a villa, no phones, beautiful women, and got in there. We get dressed every single night. You come down, and then 2 glasses of wine a night is the cap. And I was like, what? And I think in the first couple on my series, the first couple of nights, they let you have more. But then on the second, after there was an incident where something got a bit out of hand, and then they set the tone, I was 2 glasses a night. And it drove me insane because I was back then heavily reliant on alcohol back then to socialise, and 2 glasses of wine a night just wasn't doing it for me. And I couldn't get drunk, and I found it really difficult to go into dating situations, everything else. And I was calling board meetings with the rest of the Love Island and say, guys, we're not going out tonight. We're not going to go out there and perform for them without alcohol. And then we'd go on a date, and then there'd be glasses of champagne on every table for the speed date, and I'd run around and just neck them all. And I was so, yeah, literally. And the girl that I was with, Katie, at the time, she just...
I'm surprised they didn't kick you out for that.
Well, they would have done this, they could have done. And Katie was like, it's not the Scottish show, because I would need alcohol to become a character. I didn't know, and this is another...
It's always the Scottish show, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't know who I was without alcohol, and I'm still figuring it out now, because it's been so part of my being. It's been so part of my everyday existence. Not every day, but in terms of how I socialized, how I defined myself. And I was lost on Love Island without it, if I'm honest, in the evenings. And it was tough, but at the same time, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because people got to see the vulnerable Scott, the the raw Scott, not the bravado, not the facade that alcohol sometimes provides.
Completely. So interesting. That was a bit of a learning curve for you. So coming out of that show, so you did a year before that, you said, before Love Island?
No. So I didn't go sober until the end of 2019, 2020. And I went to Love Island in 2016. So I came out and I continued to drink. And I just kept getting hit with like warning sign after warning sign, like, Scott, you need to stop drinking. And I can't.
Warning sign like what? Tell me. What was
just
the impact?
If I went out, Rory, I could be out for 2 days and I could disappear when I had big like jobs on at work. I could just get a really bad reputation for myself as being crazy Scott. I wasn't aggressive or anything like that. I was just a bit of a lunatic. And I kept waking up on Monday mornings going, right, this is the last time I'm going to drink now. I'm going. And also, I lived quite a healthy lifestyle in the week. I was in the gym.
True.
I was eating avocado and eggs. I was focused on work, and then literally I could go out once a month and it'll be carnage to the point where, do you know what? Sometimes I think because I didn't like myself so much, it was a bigger problem for other people. So I've got mates who go out and they live like a crazy lifestyle, but because they're quite content and they're happy with it, it's not a big issue. Whereas with me, because I detested myself for that behavior and I would go into myself for a week or so, like it would impact people around me. And then it became a bigger problem than maybe it was. But I just knew what I was destined for. I knew my potential. And the fact that people would kind of write me off as a certain type of way or in a certain type of way, it was like, you don't even know me. You don't know what I'm capable of. And I just felt constantly like I was letting myself down.
So there's 2 compartmental parts into here. You talk about the impact, the negative impact. And this is really important. I'd love to just explore that a little bit more with you. And there's also I feel like I can do more and I feel like I can give more. And I think inside that is the gap where anybody listening, the vast majority of us probably feel those 2 things around alcohol. If you're regularly drinking alcohol, then you're going to be feeling that sort of sluggish and things like that. If you're drinking to a high level, it will be having an impact on you. But the unfortunate thing is, out there in society, is that all of that impact, all of that negativity is normalized. It's actually poo-pooed, right? You know, oh, so what? You stepped into your car last night. Ha! You made a total dig of yourself last night. It was hilarious. What, you mean I ended up in A&E? You mean I cracked my skull on the pavement? Oh, fucking hell, what's that place we ended up? What, the place we shouldn't have gone that if my partner found out would be the end of, et cetera, right? So all normalized.
It's so funny you say that, because last night, one of my mates described one of his pals. He went, oh, he's such a lad. And I went, what do you mean by a lad? And I played it over and went, a lad, basically a lad is someone who could be crazy, like carefree, drink a load of pints and not be arsed. And I just thought, isn't it weird how we kind of glorify that behavior?
That is a huge amount of construct for all of us. It's a big battle inside our heads, because it's, you know, society and belonging and fitting in and all of those things. But all of the questioning of it is done quietly internally, right? Because you can't talk about it out there. It's all normalized. So that's why, like, let's just go into if you were to be, and Scott, I'm only doing this because you are somebody who is so open, so honest, so happy to talk about these things. And I love that about you. If I was to ask the people around you, okay, what is the impact of Scott's drinking? The people who care, the people who are close. What was the truth? What was the impact alcohol was having on you?
I was just so different to the Scott that everybody knew when I had a drink. And I think it was uncomfortable for them. So I would go to a family event or a social event, turn up as Scott, and then slowly but surely over the night become louder, more invasive, more kind of overwhelming. I was overwhelming. I would take over, make it all about me. And it got to the point where my friends just didn't really want to go out with me as much. They couldn't really have a good conversation with me because I wasn't even there.
Yeah.
That's what they would say. He was like, we can't even talk to you, Scott. You're not even there. And I was going out not for them. I was going out for me. Yeah. To drink myself into oblivion. And it wasn't really about connection. Some people go out to connect socially and catch up with friends, and they weren't getting me. They were getting Scotty Special, which was my alter ego. And I think it got to a point where the patience had gone with it. Like, it was funny and it was cute when you were younger and it was glorified. But as you got older and people just want more kind of solid conversations, they want more kind of meaningful relationships. It's not as fast paced. And people want to be heard. They want to be listened to. They want to feel connected. And with me, it was just the Scotty show. It was full on takeover mode. And I think that's when it got to the point where people just didn't really want to be around me. And also, I could be really unfiltered as well. I am so focused on being a people pleaser when I'm sober. I love to be the nice guy. I love to be loved. And that's part of my character. I like to make people feel good. But when I was drunk, it was like a rebellion in my brain. I would just tell people exactly what I thought, how I thought it. Even if I didn't think it, I'd say it because it'd be like I wanted to be as outrageous as possible. And I'd say something to someone, even if I didn't mean it, because I knew it might hurt them or trigger them, just because I thought it was banter. But that's not really me. And I think that's what the problem was. It was like Scott Thomason and there was a Scotty Special, and people just kind of got like too confused by it. And if you didn't know me, you would have taken that Scotty Special at face value, and you wouldn't really liked him.
I hear you loud and clear, and you are describing me 100%. And all of exactly my behavior and routines, and the forked tongue would come out, and I mean, I've said some pretty horrendous things. I remember this one time Jen had a female friend, and it was Jen's 30th birthday party, and I sat next to her and I was like, look, you're a fucking awful drunk. Can you just keep it calm on? It's Jen's birthday. I'm sick of carrying your fucking bag and your coat and trying to figure you out. Like, just stop. And she was mortified. I proceeded to get absolutely shit-faced. I had to pull the taxi over, throw up. I smashed a table from trying to do a front flip on it. I was the disgrace that night. So I think that's what I got for speaking my mind too much to other people.
Yeah, because you're obviously, Rory, you're so intelligent, I can tell that. And it's almost like when I was drunk, I would use that intelligence to kind of just to be nasty a little bit. Like,
it was under the guise of banter.
Yeah,
it was exactly what the person needed to hear, and cruel usually.
Yes, exactly that. It wasn't banter if someone's getting hurt, right?
No, exactly. This is really interesting and great stuff, and I think a lot of people will be resonating with that.
Let's pause just for a brief moment. I just want to share with you some of the heartfelt feedback from our incredible Complete Control community members. Listen to this.
I don't know how I signed up. I think I just got an ad on Instagram and just got a whim, just hit the button and did a call and then signed up and didn't really consciously think much about it. And then after that, I was like, what did I just sign up for? Wait a second here. Like, far exceeded my expectations. I'm usually extremely skeptical, so I don't know how I even signed up in the first place, but whatever it was. So it's just amazing how, like, the transformation that I've seen, and even the drinking part is just kind of it was the Achilles heel, but it's kind of just the superficial problem. And it's like, once I kind of clear that up, there's so much more possibility. And the exploration discussions with Gary, with Candace have just been so powerful, and they both kind of focus on a different area. And then with Glenn kind of looking at my data, and with my cohorts or classmates, or, it's just been everything has just been so powerful and kind of supportive of, completing the whole picture of how I do this. So just really grateful and also just feel more grateful, and not only just for all of you, but just in life in general. It's just a little bit more clarity and peace and calm and so forth. So
I am incredibly grateful for this entire program, everybody on this call, and everything that we were able to experience. I think that it delivered more than I expected. Honestly, I like I've said before, I've done a couple of challenges and different things, and I think that this, beyond examining my relationship with alcohol and making, I think, pretty good strides in staying alcohol free. I think it taught me a ton about myself and how to like examine my habits and my thoughts and those kind of patterns and ways to approach the things that worried me the most in this experience have just been invaluable. I think I'm leaving feeling stronger in general, more self-aware in general, and just really more anchored in who I want to be and what my values are and how I can, take better steps to achieve those. So it's been fantastic for me. And then again, our team, I really appreciate all the feedback and support from every single person on this call, but my cohort as well. It's been great.
So I love everybody that I've met here. I have loved the program. I am not an emotional person like this, but this has changed my life. It has given me a life. And there's other things I need to do too. But I don't have to do alcohol anymore. So thank you.
It's been an amazing journey and I appreciate the professionalism. Whenever I feel the stress, there's something that I can go back to everybody and the sharing from everybody and the professionalism of the program. So I loved it and I've grown a lot. So loves and kisses.
One word is transformational. That's a word that's been bandied about for decades, but in this, it is absolutely accurate if I was to use one word. This was a great investment. It's not self-help, it's self-realization. It's super powerful, but it exceeded my expectations. Or maybe it was Sharon who said that. Or maybe I'm exceeding my expectations, and I like that.
I mean, the program has been I'm hugely grateful for the program. I think the journey for myself has been amazing. I mean, I remember telling, I don't know if it was Candace or Gary, the first 3 or 4 weeks of the program, I was like, I can't stop thinking about not drinking. It's in my head. Every day I'm thinking about not drinking. And it's like now I'm not even thinking about it. It's just like my life has sort of stepped on. I'm excited about the future. Things are looking good.
I just love sharing the things people are saying about our complete control program. Okay, let's get back into the episode. If you think back to coming up to the next version of going an alcohol-free, because you're about to celebrate your second 12 months going alcohol-free, your second 1 year no beer. Where are you now?
So my last drink was on I'm going to say the 15th of December. And I remember like yesterday because I was on a family ski trip. I was seeing someone at the time who I really care about and still care about now. And it was actually her birthday. I said, I'm lucky for you that your birthday will now always be my sobriety date. So what we've done is I've moved it on a day past the birthday just so it doesn't get tarnished. You know what? I woke up the next day. It wasn't anything major, but I was just rude to her. I was a bit nasty. I just said some weird. In fact, I said some stuff that I actually. It's always weird this because some of the stuff that I said I actually meant, but the way that I delivered it was just atrocious. And one thing I realized was I always ended up being the bad guy because of alcohol. It just always made me the bad guy. And every other aspect of my life was under control. I was in great shape. I had a wellness brand by this point as well. So I was kind of conflicted because like I launched this wellness brand off the back of being sober. And now I'm not sober and I'm still getting myself into these situations every now and then. I was like, it's kind of contradictory. So I was like, it's just not doing anything for me. It makes me unhappy. I upset people. I was like, I'm done with this feeling. And also, I don't know about you, Rory, but every time I drank, even if I had a good night and nothing went wrong, the lows were still there. And I was like, I don't get it. Like the anxiety was still, and I was like, is this just my body telling me that's it? You've had enough now, Scott. Like, because I remember in Tulum, I went out in Tulum and again, I got drunk and I remember being a bit nasty to someone. And I woke up the next day with a fear. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to drink again. And then I thought, right, a week went by and said, last night at the holiday, I'm going to have a drink. I went out and had the best night. I was in control. I drank water in between my drinks and I had a great night. But the next day, body full of anxiety. And I was like, right, something's not working here. Because if I'm still getting this feeling, even though I've not done anything wrong, I feel like my body's rejecting it. So anyway, that day was like, it was nothing major, nothing. It was just like a little argument that I had with someone. I was like, don't like this feeling. I really care about this person. If I can upset her, then something needs to change. So I just decided to go sober. But this time I changed my methodology around it. I didn't say it in the year. I was like, I'm doing it for good. And the reason why I said I'm doing it for good was because I wanted to learn I wanted to learn new social skills. I wanted to adapt to life. Whereas before, when you put a timeline on it, sometimes I feel like you get by just going, well, I don't need to go there for a year. Don't need to do that for a year. Do you know what I mean? So this time I've kind of said it's indefinite. I'm not saying that is now because obviously the more that I go into it, the more I speak to people like yourself. If I'm honest, this year, done it before, I kind of breezed it. Like it's weird. Once you've done it, you just kind of breeze it. And I'm at a point now, Rory, hence why I want to sit down and talk to you that I've gone sober for a year. My whole life has improved across the scale in terms of like my personal development, my growth. There's a question mark around my happiness because as I mentioned to you before that although I'm constantly growing and improving in so many areas of my life, am I content and happy? That's a difficult one to answer because my life has improved, but I feel like sobriety is kind of relentless for me because I don't know how to naturally switch off. I don't know how to naturally stop pushing for more. Whereas back in the day, it'd be like, right, worked all month, now let's self-sabotage, explode, da-da-da. And obviously I don't have that in my toolkit anymore. And I went on a holiday recently and I was sat in a bar, had no temptation to drink. I was sat in a bar, look around, alcohol, I don't want you, not interested in you. However, I'd love something just to go, just, you can breathe now, Scott. Stop thinking about the craziness of life. Just be present, like, for a moment. And I get little glimpses every now and then when I'm playing paddle tennis or something like that. But it's rare and far between. And that's kind of what I'm chasing now. That kind of moment of rest and chill.
Good. Okay, cool. And when you get to this year, have you already decided? I mean, you said before when you signed up, you started the year, you're like, that's it, I'm done. I'm never drinking alcohol again. And is that still the space you're in? You're now coming up to a year. Where's your head at?
Yeah. So I've got no ambition to drink or inclination to drink. However, do I think this is going to be the answer for the rest of my life? I don't want to go through the rest of my life knowing that something's controlling me and that something is telling me that I can't do something like, or there's a barrier, there's a boundary. You can get by doing that. And I think willpower will get you so far. But I'm just all about getting to the point where I have control. I feel like it's controlling me.
Well, there's a few, just running back into a couple of things. A lot of the things, I'm not making any assumptions about you, but a lot of the things like that, really very driven, can't switch off, the kind of behavior you're talking about resonates very strong with me. Now, I'm very ADHD. I've been diagnosed with ADHD. And that was a huge relief for me in understanding that. Has anyone ever said, have you ever resonated with that? Have you ever thought or wondered?
Well, Roy, after our first conversation that we had, and you mentioned it, I just thought, and the one thing that you said to me was, it's not, I was like, yeah, but I think it's pretty clear that I've got ADHD. Everybody, whoever's been diagnosed comes up to me and says, Scott, you definitely got it. And I'm like, okay, offense. And I don't take offense to it in any way, shape, or form. I'm like, how's it going to help me? But what you said was, it doesn't necessarily help you that much. It helps the people around you. So straight after our first call, I went and had the test. I had a test done at one of my clients, actually. Very fortunate to look after a private medical practice called Pall Mall Medical. And I went in for the first assessment, and he said everything's pointing into the direction of you having ADHD. I've got to go back next week for the full kind of thing. So I'm going through that process right now. And again, it's not because I want to go, hey, look at me, I've got ADHD.
No, I'm a label.
No. Yeah, no, it's more about just, again, that kind of understanding yourself, self-awareness piece. So I'm interested, Roy, to know from you, like, how the diagnosis has helped you in your life.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. I mean, I recently spoke at ADHD UK conference. It's a topic I'm very, very passionate about. There's a huge proportion of society out there that's on the neurodivergent scale that isn't diagnosed, isn't seeking help, not getting help. And I think the thing is, there are lots of interesting tools to help. But first of all, the biggest, like I mentioned to you before, when I started reading into it, like ADHD for Dummies was the first book I read. And it was so relieving. Like, oh my God, now I understand why I've been such a fucking Fruit Loop my whole life. Now I understand that feeling of not fitting in, of feeling special, different, unique. Now I understand that where all this drive, energy comes from. Now I understand why I can do the work of 10 people, right, in half the time. But similarly with all of those things, like I strongly believe that ADHD is my superpower. I'm incredibly grateful for the ADHD-ness. I also know that the way to communicate to my wife is, look, honey, it's nothing. It's not an understanding of how much I love something, whether I remember it or not. It's just a gamble of whether I remember or not. It's not anything to do with whether I love it or not. So if you want me to remember the groceries specifically that you just told me 15 seconds ago which to get, it must be written down. Because if it's not written down, I absolutely guarantee you I'll forget. And similarly, on the journey of, hey, honey, could you just grab me the pliers from the garage? On that journey of opening the sliding door and hearing it squeak, so knowing I need to get WD-40 from Amazon, picking up my phone, starting ordering WD-40 from Amazon, seeing a message from Jeff on there about something else. Next minute, I'm outside just doing something totally randomly different. And my wife comes out and goes, did you get the pliers? And I'm like, oh, fuck, right? That is understanding ADHD, that there are a gazillion opportunities for me to get distracted, even within 8 seconds. And so it helps other people around you and deal with it. I just talked to a business owner who's coming on complete control now, and he was like, I figured out some time ago I was ADHD, so I focused very specifically on having people around me in my team who are able to cope with that, who are able to constantly bring me back to say, no, we're not doing that. We're sticking to the plan here. Who are planned, organized, structured, all of those things.
And also the type of people, because I think sometimes like I can make my team quite nervous.
Yeah.
Because
burnt out. Burnt out.
Yeah, because I put so much pressure on myself. I think, need it now.
Everything has to be now.
Yeah, they feed off that energy. Whereas my PA, for example, Katie, we were just talking about it before we came in. We were like, she's so kind of, her tolerance for stress is really high, and she just doesn't get phased. And I'm like, she's really organized, and she's like that. Whereas I've got Ella, who's my social goes really tight at what she does. But I know I call her a flapper because I make her flap and she went, Scott, I realized I'm not the problem. You're the problem. I went,
100% you're the problem. There's no question about that. I'm the problem. There's a really good tool called the Kolbe, Kolbe. I highly recommend. It's like a personality test for how you operate at work. So I'd recommend you taking it and people around the team. And one of it is the quick start, is how fast you are. Now I'm 10 on the quick start, which is as high as you can get, which basically means if it's not now, it does not exist. There is only now. And that's kind of how I operate in everything. I need everything done now and all of that stuff. But so I think coming back specifically into your question, this helps enormously to understand. Now, for most people who don't have a private practice, just to mention that ADHD UK, they provide a huge number of resources for you to go and see, test, have a look. So go and check out ADHD UK. At the moment, the waiting list is 10 years in some areas in the UK to get diagnosed, which is a shocker. So that's why ADHD UK exists, for you to go and find out and rectify these things. But so the one thing that's linking specifically into our relationship with alcohol is that you are like a dynamo, more so than most human beings. Most human beings are that we wind up our central nervous system with stress and daily busyness. And then what happens is that we can't switch it off, and so that we need something to take the edge off at the end of the day. Well, ADHD is even more so, like 10 times more that. So if you don't find calm, if you're not in search of calmness and taking breaks and helping you calm your central nervous system, you wanting to act out at the end of the day is a foregone conclusion. So the bit that you're searching for, which is, I need something to take the edge off, I just need to switch my brain off, that's a practice. That's a skill. It's not a substance. And what we have to do is learn the skill and the tool in order for us to mitigate a stressed out central nervous system, rather than searching for a substance like alcohol, which, by the way, is the worst. It's the freaking worst. Choose bloody CBD oil. Choose ashwagandha. Choose...
Rory, I've started vaping and I can't stand it. And it's like...
That's another compulsion.
Yeah, it's like I've started vaping. I'm like, all right, I'm kind of kidding myself. It's not as bad as alcohol because it doesn't... But it goes against everything that I'm about and I want to be about. And I'm like, even now when it's called, I can't wait for a little... I'd love a little vape tonight. I've done like 2, 3. I'm basically trying to quit as of Monday. And yeah, it's like, even when I'm on this call, I can feel this urge going, right, you're going to get through today and then you're going to treat yourself to a little vape. And it's just like, wow, why am I always looking to fill a void?
So this is why you should come and do complete control. Right now, you might say, well, why do I want to do complete control? Because I'm a year alcohol-free and I don't want to drink again. That's, again, why you should do alcohol-free. I'm just going to wind out one example. I spoke to a guy who came onto the program recently, and he said, look, I never really had a problem with alcohol before. You know, it was only 4 or 5 years ago that it really stepped up a notch. And I was like, okay, it's interesting. It's before the pandemic. So what was that? And we couldn't really figure it out. And as we were chatting, I said, well, you look healthy. And he said, well, I wasn't always this way. I used to be 400 pounds. And I'm like, whoa, what did you do? He said, I got a gastric band. And I said, when did that happen? He said, 4 or 5 years ago. And so I'm like, okay, so what you're saying to me is that you used to have compulsion for food. You got a gastric band, put a plaster on it, and it turned into a poor relationship with alcohol. And this is kind of what's happening to you here. Compulsion is there. You haven't addressed what is driving compulsion for you. You're abstaining from alcohol, which, again, is great. It gives an opportunity to make a lot of changes in your life. But if you don't actually do the work to change the compulsion in the first place, you're just going to turn into something else. And this is why vaping is showing up for you. This is why people turn to binge eating. This is why people turn into binge social media. All these other things after removing alcohol. And this is the one thing I'm going after. This is my flag post in there, is that we can teach people to reduce the compulsion they have in their life. They can do it. They just need to know what that is.
So it's a question for you, Rory. So when I've got that urge now, go for the vape, and I recognize it in myself and I recognize probably why, what would be a coping mechanism that you would give now in that situation? Would it be to kind of sit and feel that emotion, or?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, let's talk about plasters. So in the moment, well, number one, let's talk about craving. Craving is 15 minutes long in general. Craving is 15 minutes long, and it peaks just like a wave, and then it falls away very rapidly. So you really have 15 minutes to pass through it. So that's why during the craving, it's a great time to either take some breath. One tool, which is the physiological sigh, is the most well-proven scientific tool that we have within our power. Not any device or drug or anything like that is the most powerful, and it's called the physiological sigh. And it's the fastest at bringing you from fight or flight back into recovery. So helping that central nervous system get into parasympathetic. And it goes like this. Let's just do it together right now. It's a long inhale through the nose, a sharp inhale through the nose, and a long, slow exhale through the mouth. So it goes like this. Okay, physiological sigh. 10 of those will help your central nervous system return back to the way it is. That's such a simple tool. Why are we not taught it as kids, right? Why are we not shown that and brought it in? Why is it not in our Zoom calendar? Finish the meeting at 55 minutes. Never finish the meeting at 60 minutes. Do the physiological sigh 10 times. Bring your central nervous system back from stress into recovery. Spend the rest of the afternoon in recovery. So then, I mean, along with craving comes things like, right, distraction. What can you do to distract in that moment? So exercise, squats, quick burpee, something like that. Find a distraction, busy yourself, do something else. Remember that most of us are dopamine addicts. So in that moment, you're actually seeking dopamine. So what's better than vaping? Well, you could have a look at social media. You're going to get some dopamine from that. You could do exercise. You could find another way to release dopamine. So that's the plaster, right? And again, lots of people during their challenges and things keep plastering. But underneath that, we have to look at what is the actual driver of this compulsion. And the reality is, for most of us, the driver is our past experiences, our feelings from our past experiences as a child, where we have emotion that we haven't yet processed or dealt with. And that emotion has been taught to pat down, pat down, pat down, pat down, and it keeps surfacing. And the biggest thing that drives those things is stress. So the more we get stressed out, the more we're triggered by these past experiences, even though they're not in our frontal lobe, right? You're not sitting there thinking about how you were treated as a child by Jimmy at the school, right? You're not thinking about that. You're not thinking about how traumatic your birth was at the moment where you have a vape. That's not where it comes from, right? But that is the underlying emotion that is driving the compulsion. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think that's kind of where I'm at now, where it's like, I'm very observant of my behavior. I can see when it's coming. Whereas before, it's so weird. All of my life, I've kind of just been oblivious. Like, you don't really take a step back and go, why am I doing this? Or what are the underlying reasons? You kind of just get into that habit of going, oh, this is just not. And also, it's normalized. Like I said, it's just normalized, all these things.
Totally.
So yeah, I'm at a really exciting point now where I reckon I'm going to do that work to kind of look underneath the bonnet and actually see where these problems are coming from.
Well, that is where you should come and join us on Complete Control, because that's exactly what we do. I don't know of another program that is using technology, data, evidence to help people understand with clarity what is driving compulsion. And whether you're alcohol-free or you're abstaining from something currently and doing a successful job, or you are drinking regularly, whatever it is, if there is that drive of compulsion, if you feel that need to numb out, if you're holding on to your sobriety, then that is not the right way to live. We can change our relationship with it, and fundamentally. And that's exactly what we do in Complete Control. So I think you should come and join us on the program.
It sounds like it's right up my street, and it's something I'm looking for at the moment because, like I said, when I first met you, Ruari, and obviously I know you from your previous work and the stuff about sobriety, when you said to me, like, you said you still drink every now and then, I was blown away. I was like, that's the point I want to get to. And just explain to me a little bit about that, Ruari. So obviously, because when you do drink, how often do you drink still now? And you're at a point where it's just like, are you in a happy place with it, would you say?
I would like to say that I'm mostly agnostic to it. So most of the time I choose not to drink. So last time I had a binge session was probably around Christmas last year. So with my brother who likes to drink like a fish. Love you, bro. And that's just the way it is and the way it goes. Yeah, exactly. So I go and do that, and I feel absolutely horrendous for a week. I mean, like, it's like fetal position, borderline suicidal, full of anxiety. Like, how often do I want to feel like that way? Like, I have stuff to do in the world. Like you, I want to make a massive impact in the world. I've got this great vision and all of those things. So it just doesn't really feature. Now, more importantly, I've made loads of changes over the last 9-10 years. Like, my sole social circle was around oil broking, oil industry, massive booze hounds. But that's not my social circle anymore. The vast majority of my social circle is more the CrossFit group. And I mean, we went out for a CrossFit night out to bowling, and I don't think there was a single person drinking alcohol there because they're like, don't really want to do that, don't really want to add it in. So that doesn't mean you all have to remove all your friends who drink like booze hounds, but you do need a social circle who is behaving how you want to behave, right? We need to feel more connected. Sorry, getting back specifically onto my relationship with alcohol. Vast majority of the time, I choose not to drink. I'm not sure when the last time I had alcohol was. It will be well over a month now. And even then, if I have a couple of drinks, 2 drinks, my sleep's going to be terrible. I'll toss and turn all night. I will still feel low and anxious the next day, ruminating thoughts inside my head. And I think to myself, business is difficult enough. I mean, it is incredibly challenging. It can be incredibly lonely. It can be incredibly difficult. There are so many problems. There's so much stress with business. Why do I want to add in something which is actually specifically it literally debilitates our coping mechanisms. That's what alcohol does. So it reduces your ability to cope with stress. So why do I want to add that in? It's just very poorly.
You've listed a lot of reasons there, Ruari, in terms of why you wouldn't drink.
Yes.
So on those occasions when you would drink,
Yeah.
What
So
is
why drink if you're so this is what people say, like, come on, Ruari, you're the one who's saying it's 100% poison. Yes, you're the one who's saying there's no benefits. Well, I mean, hang on, I never say that. And I hear people say there are no benefits to drinking, and I'm like, you're a liar. It's just not true. We live in a world which is saturated with booze. We live in a world where I've stood next to a group of guys talking about their cricket championship. And they're like, look, we really need to up our game. We've got to get better. And they're like, well, we could invite Mark. And one guy goes, no, we can't invite Mark. He doesn't drink. Like, it would be more important for them to lose than have a guy who doesn't drink on the team. This is the world we live in, right? And so as long as society is so totally immersed in it, and so in that, there's going to be occasions where you want to have a drink. And so if I'll give you another example. Let's say I move school, right? And thankfully I haven't done this for a while. And you want to meet the new dads, and they don't care about my business and all of those wonderful things. So the very first time I go and I meet those new dads, I'm going to drink, right? I'm going to drink with them. Now, I don't need to do it ever again because they have an imprint of me having had a drink, so that I'm one of the guys. I'm not the guy who doesn't drink. So I think there's lots of factors into consideration like that. But I will say, I never come home and think I need a drink. That has gone, because it is not a coping tool for me. The math has been deleted in my head that it is any kind of coping tool. I'd sooner rather have a headache pill, or do something, or meditate, or do some kind of exercise, or get it out of my system in that way, than I would use alcohol to deal with stress, because it will only make itself worse in the long term.
Do you know what? The one situation where I would want to drink, like, say, for example, I kind of ruled out having a drink with the boys now, because yes, that's all, like, it's all fun. And, like, some of my best stories, even now to this day, when I talk to my boys, is all about, they've been based around stories, and I beat them when they're off our heads and everything else, and we laugh hysterically at them, right? But I'm not kind of chasing that now, because I know that only leads to, like, the extremes. Whereas now, if I'm on a date with someone and it's someone that I care about, and I want to kind of go to a few little bars and enjoy drinking a little bit of a deep conversation, and that's the bit. And I don't know if that's within me, where I'm scared to get intimate, like, without alcohol. I don't know if that's what it is, because but that's the one situation where I would actually enjoy a drink in that situation. Like, I would actually go, you know what, I'd love to just, and because I knew it would escalate, we'd go home together, like, it'd be, do you know what I mean? Like, and that's where I'd love to get to the point where I'm in a dating scenario and I can have a drink, and I go, that's the one part where I go, that's not a coping mechanism. I hope it's not. That's more of an enjoyment thing that I feel like I'm restraining myself from doing that because of all the other stuff that happens in different scenarios, if that makes sense.
But I think inside that is when you get into the emotion that you feel about it, and you actually get in touch with that emotion. Is it coming from a place of fear? So is it, I'm nervous? And you talked about that before, like, probably the only way you could socialize was through alcohol. So inside there's some insecurities in here. And the emotion is, not feeling good enough, not worthy, not all of that stuff, which creates these insecurities and creates that anxiety. And then you feel like you need to have a drink. But equally, it may not be, right? But I think that the wonderful place of removing alcohol, right, choosing to go a year alcohol free, is it's an opportunity for you to kind of see these things, feel the emotions, make these changes, do the work, right? And that's our big thing here is I think, don't go in search of abstinence. Don't go in search of just not drinking. Ultimately, there's a reason why alcohol was prevalent for you. What is that? And let's go in search of doing the work instead. Because what I don't want for people, right, is for them just to hold on for dear life to the sobriety, meanwhile eating cake and binge watching Netflix. Let's help people really heal from the things that are driving the compulsive behavior.
Well, you've sold complete control to me, Roy. So that's something I'd definitely love to give a go. What would be like the next steps then in terms of getting on board with that?
I'll ping you straight after this lovely little poddy, and we'll get you set up and take you on a wonderful journey. And thanks for joining us. It'll be exciting to see how you transform and what your thoughts are going through the program.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit revolutionary what you guys are doing, because
it is.
Until I met you and heard your story and your approach to this, I just felt like sobriety was going to be my identity. And like you said, people cling on to that. And I'm clinging on to it. I'm using that on my platforms to inspire other people and everything else. But at the same time, there is always going to be that level of something controlling me rather than me controlling it. And I don't think that's the way anybody should live their life. So if you've got this course that obviously provides all of these skills and all of this like kind of self-awareness, knowledge around uncovering what those issues are that pushes towards sobriety, then that's something I definitely want to explore.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I love that from our first conversation, you went straight down to get the diagnosis of ADHD. I mean, that's a huge step forward. You know, just that could be life-changing in hearing it and knowing what to do and navigating it. So yeah, well done to you. A massive action taker. And you know, really, it was your socials that made me reach out, because I just thought, look at what this guy's doing. It's amazing. You know, you're using your platform and really encouraging others, and you know that will help you too. You know that, right? Because it's very, very hard. This is for me, right? I created 1 Year No Beer for me. It'd be very difficult for me to be fucking pouring out of a nightclub, absolutely battered to bits. You know, it would be almost impossible for me to do that. So it keeps me straight, keeps me clear. And I think
there's anything wrong with that, Rory, because I ask myself sometimes, like, I obviously put it out to the universe about my story of sobriety and stuff, because it almost keeps me accountable as well. And you get a lot of recognition for being sober. It's crazy, isn't it? You know, in a world that's saturated with alcohol, you get celebrated for sobriety by a lot of people.
Yes, you do.
I worry though is that I don't want that to be too much of a driving factor in my journey, because that will wear off.
It will. It will. And that is my journey, Scott. You know, I did a year alcohol free, and then I built this organization which expected me never to have a drink. And I was like, if I am told no, I'm going to do it anyway. And this is going to actually create a more problematic relationship with me. I'll be hiding it. It'll be secrecy and everything. I can't do that. So that's why I had to shift everything for me. And more importantly, I had to make it perfectly okay for me to come out of a nightclub and be smashed up. But it happens once in a blue moon. And the thing about it is that the whole point about that is this is a completely different rhetoric. Like, if the option for people is you're either sober or you're drinking, you have a problem, then what the hell? That's not the truth. That's not the vast majority of people who are drinking in the world. Like, why is it not okay to not drink for 364 days out of the year, but have one binge fest? What's wrong with that? Like, that's a massive win. So we've got to change this rhetoric. We've got to change this part. And I think it's really important to be able to teach people, show them the tools they need and do the work so that they can have a take or leave it relationship with alcohol.
Yeah. Do you know what? Looking back over my kind of experiences at social events, I always remember certain people who would come and you would offer them a drink and they would take the drink or they would leave it. It wouldn't have no impact on the rest of their night. I'd look at them going, like, I'd be getting to the event going, right, where's the bar? Like, I need that drink to get me through this event. And these people would always stand out, and I can even see like certain people flashing through my head now, where it had no relevance to how much they enjoyed their night, and they would literally take it or leave it and still have the same kind of experience. And I think that is winning for me, and that's where I want to get to. So hopefully, complete control will give me that.
Amazing. Now, tell me what you're doing now. You've got the social PR. You're focused on that business. Tell me the things that you're up to now and where people can find more of you.
Yeah, so I'm spinning a lot of plates at the moment, but my 3 babies are the social PR, which is an experiential led marketing agency, and we deal a lot with kind of production and builds from the ground up, and then also like social amplification, so like influencer marketing, bringing these events and creative activations to life. And that's something that's kind of an extension of one part of Scott, which is working with cool brands, connecting people, managing talent, like part of almost like the Scottish special element of my personality from my events, because I built such a massive network that now looking to me to be connected to people, to brands, everything else. So that's one side of me. And then I've got Food for Thoughts, which is the wellness side of Scott, which is it's going through a bit of a remodel at the moment, but it's going to be a model that facilitates lifestyle change. And all the factors that have helped me get to where I am today. So nutrition, fitness, mindset, and community as well, being surrounded by like-minded people. This is going to be a product that brings all of those kind of services to our community. We've got a really strong community as it stands, and we do lots of like events in the countryside, walks, games. We've got our Christmas party, and we bring people together in a balanced way. And it's like the one place where I can go. For example, I've got a Christmas party next week, and I have no expectation to drink. People will be drinking, and that's fine. But it's the one place where I go, and I can just be silly. I can be fun because it just seems like a safe place.
Yeah, exactly. That's the people who know and love you, right? Your team.
Exactly, like-minded people. So that's something I've got a lot of plans for in 2024. Really excited about that. And then obviously I've got my personal brand, which is me, like working on creating inspirational content and building a podcast. I've got a podcast called Learning As I Go. Series 4 goes live in the new year, which is all about self-development, life lessons.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Scott. I feel like we did an awful lot of talking about complete control. We went through some deep stuff about you, which was fun. I love that.
I love it.
Open up for that. I think it's amazing to have a platform like you have, and then to be using it for good to help people and inspire people with that. And I think just being real, right, about it, about the journey, about the pitfalls, about the ups and the downs and everything else. And that's what people will resonate with the most. There's a lot to dig into there, which we will do in Complete Control. Catch you soon.